You guys have stopped by my streams recently, which, shout out, we're doing one here later this evening and on Saturdays and Sundays as well. Mostly talking politics. Mostly because, well, this entire month and the past month as well has been kind of wrapped up in all of this pride insanity, but I still love to talk politics. It's my bread and butter after all. And yeah, we've been talking a lot about the GOP primary and who is ultimately going to be the nominee, unless, of course, a legal battle and a strike of lightning from, yes, the DOJ gods ends up hitting the Trump campaign. Is going to be Trump at the end of the day. DeSantis is trying his best to look like a Bushite neocon feminist. He's doing an excellent impersonation of that right now, and we're taking that apart as it goes. And I made an offhanded remark on the Sunday stream when we watched the Donald Trump Iowa town hall with Sean Hannity. It's like, I know that Nikki Haley is supposed to be having a CNN town hall here in some point in time. If it's worth our time, we might go, get some notes off of it. Maybe we'll watch them. Maybe we'll do a watch along to see how long we can last before we just cringe into oblivion. And lo and behold, it actually happened last night. So yeah, nobody knew. Nobody cares. She's been in the game. She's been running in the primary. I think she was the first one to announce at least officially, the first one to announce right after Trump, and nobody cares. Outside of Don Lemon accurately calling her old, she hasn't made a noise in the primary, and she's going to be up there on the debate stage. It's like, oh my God, you already got a bitch in Mike Pence on that stage, and then you're going to have somebody with better tits and Chris Christie turn up. Like, you're irrelevant. But we'll see. Also, what were the highlights? Okay, it was apparently a white light though. CNN Bakari Sellers calls Nikki Haley a white governor after town hall. No, she's like really Indian though, like a dot, not feather. CNN political analyst. Why do I keep wanting to say analyst? Anyways, falsely referred to Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley as a white governor from the Deep South. South Carolina, is that the Deep South? I thought that was kind of the coastal United States. Maybe, CNN, anything that's not New York it's the Deep South, right? Well, criticizing her handling of racial tensions in South Carolina following the 2015 massacre of 9 black parishioners at the Charleston church by a white supremacist. What racial tensions? Just the ones from the CNN viewers? Okay, people just passing by at an airport? Like, what are you talking about? One of the major elements of the Nikki Haley story is Charleston. Bakari Sellers, a former Democratic legislator from the Palmetto State, said following CNN's town hall event with Haley, "Oh, I'm from there and I know the racial tensions were high." Sure you do, pal. Nikki Haley did not take down the Confederate flag. Okay, sort of based, but there's other flags at play when it comes to Nikki Haley. And not ordering the stars and bars removed earlier in her tenure. Sorry, what? That bothers me when she alludes to it, or people state that because that's incorrect. 9 people died so that the Confederate flag could come down. Weird how you try to tie both of those things together, but that's your decision, race hustler. But there also has to be some credit given to a white governor from the Deep South being able to go to 9 funerals because I saw exhaustion on her face, being a leader during that time and being able to bridge people together. And people are probably going, you just call her white? Are you listen, man, we're the network that said that she was past her prime and we spurked out, and again it's kind of an effeminate black guy also saying this shit, and it's like, oh my God, deja vu, right? But in order to experience deja vu, you have to view something in the past, and nobody watches CNN anymore. So if an event is replicated weeks apart and nobody sees it, did it even actually happen? CNN anchor Caitlin Collins, who actually got Don Lemon's old spot in the evening, hilarious, jumped in to correct the record shortly after Sellers finished, saying she's the first woman of color that is running in this. Oh my God. And she was also the first. She broke the glass ceiling, and now, well, she can clean up the glass floor as the boys discuss things when the primaries debates ultimately kick off in August. Sellers later acknowledged his mistake to the CNN panel and added, should say she's a governor of color, actually. Yeah, what's her ancestry, stupid? Well, I don't know. She's colorful. Did Bakari Sellers just call Nikki Haley a white governor? What a joke, tweeted Haley's communication director. Sure, Nana. Adding later in a statement that the former ambassador to the United Nations wouldn't cave to the liberal talking heads, and that's what voters love about her. And you know what else I love about her? The most noteworthy thing from her town hall on CNN was what some stupid CNN host had to say afterwards, which was wannabe race huckster. At it again. Hilarious. But somebody who made headlines yesterday was Tim Scott. He decided to go on The View, which, oh my God, I couldn't imagine a more hostile place to go on network television for a Republican, even somebody as milquetoast rhino-y as Tim Scott. But maybe he thought, it's like, well, I'm black. I should be able to go in there. They won't be too harsh on me. Oh, Timmy, never change. Tim Scott booed on The View. Why? Hits back at hosts over disgusting race claim. Fantastic stuff. I'm sure that there was a lot of really quality discussion happening there. Senator Tim Scott was jeered by The View on Monday after saying that the radical left was indoctrinating kids in schools. Yeah? Where's the lie? And squared off with the ABC show's co-host by denying that systemic racism keeps black Americans from succeeding. The Republican presidential candidate told the all-female panel, which I couldn't imagine, that corporate culture has gone too far, pushing left-wing priorities, especially after Disney CEO Bob Iger opposed an education bill signed by Florida. No, don't say gay bill. Shut up. It's terrible. Disney and... Yo, man, what the fuck? That looks like that meme of that chick holding Kevin Hart. But do those look like people who are open to having honest conversation? Like, come on. Disney and Ron have been a combat zone for a number of months. What I thought was the right issue as it relates to our young kids and what they're being indoctrinated with. Scott, 57. Hey, 57? Holy shit, black don't crack. Said of his fellow GOP primary candidate before being interrupted by boos from the audience. Of course. Liberal white women in New York, big fucking shock that they're going to boo the black guy. I can imagine what else they were thinking that was right there at the front of their mind, but who knows if anybody had the courage to yell it out. But host Whoopi Goldberg, a fake Jew, how fantastic. Nobody ever wants to call her out for that one. That was specifically the inspiration for adopting the Goldberg surname, because her name is something like Patty Jenkins or some shit like that. It's fucking basic bitch. But in order to get a foothold in Hollywood, she needed to have a catchy first name and, yes, a Jewish-sounding last name. I think that was inspiration from her grandmother. You can go ahead and fact-check that, but I got it mostly correct. But yes, she decided to play out the old stereotype of the yappy black woman chastising the black man who's got the complete, total, correct point. No, do not boo. This is The View. Okay, that's like chastising the crowd at real time with Bill Maher for just spurious outbursts of applause after Bill Maher says, right, people. We don't have to believe everything people say, but you cannot boo people here, please. You cannot do it. Okay, so on The View, well, we also know about Whoopi's predilections when it comes to, I don't know, certain historical events that have, wooden doors and, the efficacy of those when it comes to, a certain type of gas. But I guess race comes above sex on The View. That's an interesting thing that they just exposed right there. Very, very interesting. The audience then broke into applause. Holy fuck, they're stupid. Okay, The View audience is now, a considerable rung ahead of the real-time audience. That's fucking... Yeah. Seconds ago, they were booing, and then Whoopi Goldberg says, don't boo. And then they applaud. Fuck is going on? Jesus Christ. And bitches watch this shit, huh? Scott, the only black Republican in the Senate. Okay, cool. Appealed to the same standard earlier when tangling with host Sonny Hostin over systemic racism, citing his upbringing as proof that the American dream is still alive. No, shut up, it exists. I'm actually happy that you're here. We have some things in common, Hostin told Scott, and he just leans over and goes, oh, I didn't have to suck off anybody. I don't think we necessarily have the same ascendancy story. You grew up in a single-family household, a single-mother household. I grew up with both parents. She just wanted to flex on him that he came from a busted household and she didn't, and the best that she could aspire to was just a failing talk show. One of the 20% of the cackling hens on The View. Okay, trying to downplay his accomplishments, I guess. But raised in the Bronx projects, yeah, that's right, B. Amidst a lot of poverty and violence. Not quite the same. A two-parent household is far more likely to produce a success story, and definitely Tim Scott is one of the vast minorities. Not his race, I'm just talking about his familial structure. You take a look at, all of the crime that happens in the United States, especially violent crime. Most of those guys, let's be completely honest, guys are the ones that commit a vast majority of the violent crime, at least the instances that get prosecuted, they come from busted homes. So yeah, he is definitely, one of the success stories. Don't know what he does behind the scenes. Frankly, he's so unremarkable that this is every second of his 15 minutes of fame. He went on to praise Scott as the first black senator elected in the South since Reconstruction. I don't think that's correct. But argue that his life story is the expectation and not the rule. That's true, but you can't pull one rational argument out if the rest of it's just going to be facilitated by a bunch of emotional arguing. But you do you. And so when it comes to racial inequity, it persists. Right. At 5 core aspects of life in the United States. Economics, I think it's probably economics, education, healthcare, criminal justice, and housing. Oh, interesting. Those 3 are just thrown on to the end. There's 5 core aspects of the United States. Everything that we can get for free at gunpoint by forcing other people to provide it for you. Interesting. Yeah, outside of economics, everything else there has to be facilitated by big daddy government. So you already know what time it is over there. At nearly every turn, these achievements were fought, threatened, and erased, most often by white violence. How so? Because the founding fathers were white? I don't really think that had anything to do with that. What about the Irish? What about them being also affixed to those signs that said no blacks or Irish need apply? But she probably doesn't know that. It's just, yeah, America was founded on slavery, and everything is slavery, and everything is racism, and if you can sprinkle it in as well. But you know who had it the worst during Jim Crow? The black women, I'm sure. You have indicated that you don't believe in systemic racism because he's fucking based on that issue. What is your definition of systemic racism? Oh, a fairy tale perpetuated by brainlets on a ABC panel. Oh, too specific? Or does that even exist in your mind? Leading question number 1. Let me answer your question this way, Scott went on. One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on your show, is because the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. Good rebuttal. Definitely a good rebuttal. A little wordy, but yeah, no, that's fine so far. This is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is being the exception. But I will tell you that my life is the exception. Hostin jumped in and said, It's been 114 years. What are you keeping track of that? Was that the last time that you had an orgasm? Like, what are you doing? Who cares, Sonny? But it's not actually, Scott responded. So, in fact, the matter is we've had an African-American president, African-American vice president. We've had 2 African-Americans be secretaries of state. I'd have to fact check the vice president one, but if he's referring to stupid Camelback Harris, she's Jamaican, not exactly African-American, but okay. The head of the Highway Patrol of South Carolina is an African-American, okay? Hostin interrupted again and noted that those are still exceptions. Right, because you want to think. It's funny because that kind of elucidates her opinions of blacks. It's just, they're all just gangbangers and rappers, and one finally makes it out the hood. That's just the exception. Kind of a weird perception of things. It's like, black people are also successful if they also partake in the system, okay? Like, you take a look at Whoopi Goldberg's marginal talent, and she's been relevant for decades, at least 4 decades, so I don't know, man. Scott added the black unemployment rate has fallen from 10% from 1975 to the present, which Hostin answered, 40% homelessness. I don't even know what that means. You had a chance to ask the question, Scott replied, and I've watched you on the show. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that. Not exactly the best use of your time, but okay. I understand. You got to come prepared and you got to do a little bit of background, but hopefully you just watch it with subtitles because it would have been atrocious. And now you like people, to be deferential and respectful, so I'm going to do the same thing. So here's what I'm going to suggest. The fact of the matter is that progress in America is palpable. It can be measured in generations. Yes, exactly. It's just, why not run it back to the 1950s and figure out, what went wrong when there was a higher marriage rate and a higher successful 2-parent household in the black community? Why was everything going great? And then what ended up happening in the 1960s with the intervention of Lyndon Baines Johnson bringing in the welfare state and systemically and systematically destroying the black household? You don't want to talk about that at all whatsoever. You're just going to say, it just goes back to slavery. No, it goes back to your beloved democracy. Democratic Party, but that's all right. That's all right. You don't want to listen to somebody who's in government, a black guy who got to one of the highest positions in the federal government. You don't want to listen to him, let alone, so you're definitely not going to listen to somebody from northern Alberta. But hey, man, you would think that somebody who's at least on television would have a better grasp of your own country's history than a foreigner. But hey, man, what do I'm just one of these foreigners telling you about how great America is. I look back at the fact that my grandfather, born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina, when he was on the sidewalk, a white person was coming. He had to step off and not make eye contact. That man believed then what some doubt now, the goodness of America, because he believed that having faith in God, having faith in himself, and having faith in what the future could hold for his kids would unleash opportunities in the ways that you could not imagine. Every kid today can just change the stations. Nobody has cable television anymore, but okay, fine. You can see how much progress has been made in the country. ABC, NBC, CBS, ESPN, CNN, Fox News all have African American and Hispanic hosts. Yeah, there's quote unquote diversity everywhere. Yeah, no shit. So what I'm suggesting is that yesterday's exception is today's rule. That would normally be where there would be an applause break, but all of those liberal white women were too busy feeling guilty because, oh my God, you have a black guy beating up on a Hispanic lady. What do we do? Oh my God. Scott joined the crowded field and declared and expected GOP candidates when he launched his campaign last month to a tepid response. And like I said a little bit earlier, this is probably every single second of his 15 minutes of fame, but decent showing, I guess. You got to dunk on the View girls. Congratulations. That'll probably be the last time, unless Nikki Haley wants a spot, that a Republican is going to show up during this election cycle. They'll just be lobbing rotten tomatoes or whatever else they keep in their box at the screen during the primaries, just yelling, "Orange man bad, lock him up. Florida man doesn't like gays," or whatever other intangible, unintelligible garbage they spew out to their adoring audience. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.